Burgess writes in Little Wilson and Big God being the first part of the Confessions of Anthony Burgess.
The Holy Name fills the block between Dover Street and Acker Street, across from the university. Acker Street specialised in my youth in theatrical lodgings, and my mother had stayed there before becoming a Mancunian. The church itself has theatrical associations. The Carl Rosa Opera Company would sing a flamboyant high mass with orchestral accompaniment. Leslie Stewart, before his fame as a composer of blackface songs and the musical comedy Florodora, was the regular organist. In the double quartets of Florodora, Tell Me Pretty Maiden, Are There Any More at Home Like You, he had invoked, to the shocked derision of the producer, the movements of the concelebrants at the highest mass possible. The priests of the Holy Name were Jesuits, hence men of the world, and they spoke the silver-veined English of Cardinal Newman. Any Irishman here had been absorbed into the British Jesuit establishment. The church is large, far larger than the Birmingham Cathedral, where I saw George Patrick Dwyer installed as Archbishop, and it asked of its preachers the professional vocal projection of a Henry Irving, or better, a Noel Coward. Father Bernard Vaughan had preached there, with, as Joyce's Father Conmee remembers, droll eyes and Cockney intonation, though he was Welsh. The preachers, I remember, frightened me with more patrician diction. Religion was no longer the rollicking or folklorical leprechaun stuff of Ireland. In the Holy Name, it attained the dignity and authority of imperial law. The priests were steely-eyed and blue-jawed, and by God, knew their theology. My father was to be frightened off the place. He entered for 11 o'clock Mass one Sunday with his bowler hat on and 3 castles burning. Sheer absent-mindedness. He must have thought he was entering a pub. His cigarette was fiercely doused with a well-aimed blast of holy water, and off his hat the priest hissed,
"This is not a synagogue."
Then he became the subject of a brilliant improvised sermon on willful irreverence. He never went back, except for his one Mass a year. Christmas, midnight, drunk. Like many Catholics, he made his own rules.
Burgess writes of an occasion when he confessed at the Holy Name.
I made what is known as a clean breast of it. I could see through the grill that he was reading the racing results in the Evening Chronicle. My revelation proved more interesting than the Chronicle, which he rolled into a tight staff to hit out at my ungrilled image.
Filth. Deadly sin. One so young, too. What's your name? Where'd you live?
I knew all about the secrecy of the confessional and insisted on my right to anonymity. I was told,
Get out.
and then called back to be given weary absolution and a damnable penance.
5 decades of the rosary
Then and there.
in front of the main altar.
Burgess writes of another occasion when he went to confession at the Holy Name.
I confessed to Father Clancy, who didn't speak in a rollicking brogue, but with the clipped phonemes of the BBC National programme. It seemed to me unfair that the anonymity of the confessional prevented the priest from considering my past record and taking prolonged good conduct into account when assessing my present state of ungrace. I was raved at as an inveterate fornicator. Father Clancy would not give me absolution at this time. I had better brood on my sin, realise its enormity in a cold bath, and come back next week. So I went next door to Father Fitzjames, who was deep in the racing columns. I was conventionally roared at, but distractedly absolved, with a penance of 5 Our Fathers, 5 Hail Marys, and 5 Glory Bees, with the bonne bouche of an ejaculation or so, such as, Christ have mercy, Mary, help. I dared, absolved, to ask him what was wrong with sex. He said,
Nothing. In the married state, sexual pleasure is a good and holy thing, so sanctified since it produces souls which with luck will people God's wide acres.